Hi, this is Isabel with Module 2, Activity 1. I found a grammar objective on Dave's ESL Cafe. And what it asks students to do is to write a recipe assigned to them, an unusual recipe, one you wouldn't normally do, just to kind of be fun for them. So I found some issues with it. You can read it for yourself right here. I posted a copy. It First of all, calls for students to use this as an opportunity to practice the passive voice. However, it's not at all suited for the passive voice. I don't know about you, but I have never read a recipe in my life that used the passive voice. What would that be like? Water is boiled. No, boil water should be the voice you use. So it's not suited for the passive voice. That's the first thing I noticed right away. It also lacks definition. Normally, a good professor will give guidelines about how to do the activity. It really doesn't give any guidelines. It leaves a lot of loose ends untied. So that's not very good. It's also not very dynamic. It really just has them write something and then present it. It's just, it could go a lot further with it. So 3 positive aspects are that it's imaginative, of course. It's well suited for a specific grammar objective, which is not the passive voice, it's the imperative voice. It also has the potential to be dynamic and to engage different learning types, as you will see in my example of what I would do with this. So yes, how would I improve it? I would use the imperative mood first of all, rather than the passive mood. I would make the activity more dynamic. For instance, with the performance part at the end of the class, I would encourage students to use props or to make their props if they liked. I would also add more definition to the activity for sure. Like, I want students to use at least 5 different verbs in the course of writing the recipe. I don't want them to recycle the same ones over and over again. It wouldn't be a very good practice if they did that. So I would also like to provide more materials like handouts and things. So a word bank would be very useful, especially depending on the target students. So a word bank or a phrase bank, especially for vocabulary related to cooking, and I would also like to provide an example recipe. Okay, so here's my example of the kind of handouts that I would provide. So here's a description first of all. Students will work in pairs. Each pair will be assigned a title of an imaginary dish, such as bug soup, for which they will write a recipe using the imperative voice. Each pair will use 5 to 10 verbs in the imperative for their recipe. After they have written their recipe, one student from each pair will perform their recipe in front of the class using props when appropriate, while the other reads the recipe aloud. And I have also provided an example recipe for the students as a jumping off point. So I have here bug soup. You know what occurred to me about this activity, and I think it's a great activity I found on Dave's ESL Cafe, is that it would be a great one to use around Halloween. I could do a lot of kind of weird, crazy recipes around that time, and it would kind of go with the holidays, so it would be a really good thing to use during that time. So here we go, bug soup. Obviously it's going to have an ingredients list just because, you know, that's typical of any recipe. Directions, and as you see, I've put all the verbs in blue that are in the imperative voice, and if you really wanted to, you could count them up and see how many different ones I put there, and you'll count a minimum of 5, if not more. Some of them are used over again, like add and add here, and let here, but if you really counted all of them, there would be 5 or more different ones. So fill a large pot, chop celery, add vegetables, boil water, fry all the insects, add all the spices, and serve hot, and place the bugs on top of the soup. So, okay, there we have it. That's how I would take the recipe. I think it's a great idea. I just think it could use a lot of improvement, and those are the areas that I would improve it in. Once again, those areas were that I would change it to the imperative mood rather than the passive voice. I would add more definition and I would make it more dynamic, of course. And like I said, I would also provide more materials. So there you have it. That's a wrap, and thank you for listening.